Okay, we're going to get started. We're running a little late, and we're also working in a space that's a little different than we originally hoped for in this session. So I'm going to do a brief explanation of that. I'm Rebecca Ruggles, and I am not your moderator. Your moderators are Michael Scott from Equity Matters, Place Matters, and Janet Phoenix, who's organizer of the, I'm sorry, Janet, tell me the name of your organization.
DC Environmental Health Collaborative.
DC Environmental Health Collaborative. You have bios in your packets in the orange material, so I will not read this. But what I will tell you is that I've worked with Janet and Michael on setting up this program, and they are both in touch with an amazing array of community leaders, as is Dr. Wilson and many other people who've been involved in planning this program. And as we were working on the planning committee, we realized that one of the things we needed in the structure of this symposium was to create a time and a place for community leaders to speak about their own work in building leadership within their communities and to speak to each other. So I'll say no more than that and leave it to Janet and Michael to set the stage.
Hey everybody. Won't run my mouth about what we do at Place Matters, but I'll give you a little bit of lead into what these fine people do up here. What we do at Place Matters nationally is focus on social determinants of health, and we're in 27 cities and counties across the U.S. which have the worst health disparities in the country. And some of our work is really centered around, someone mentioned in the earlier session, community-based participatory research. It's really centered around, if you go back to civics class 101, the three legs of society are, government, the policymakers, business, and the academy, because the academy is business, and finally the community-based organizations. And so our goal is to really lift up the voice and to build the power of community-based organizations in concert with those other two forms of, or two sectors of society, so that there's a little bit more power balance and some of the wisdom that comes from community can be lifted. And so it's really appropriate today that some of the fine work that folks are doing is going to be highlighted and shared as we think about what that looks like. Abdul Akbar, you all met downstairs, is a student, as a college student. He's participated as a youth faith leader at the Ecumenical Institute in Geneva, Switzerland, in a course on ecumenism and climate change, and as a result, he was chosen to participate in the United Nations Interfaith Summit on Climate Change and efforts organized by the Secretary General of the United Nations. I met Tariq at an interfaith thing. Michelle Bundy is a native Washingtonian who is fighting to save her community from continuously being victimized by environmental racism and also trying to sustain life while waiting for a kidney transplant from Johns Hopkins. There are 100,000 people waiting for kidney transplants, and since 1980, the trash transfer station has subjected her neighborhood to multiple hazards. She's fighting for the elderly and the retired African Americans who've worked all their lives only now to be subjected to this hostility. She's currently pursuing her MPA at American University. We also have with us today, Gwen Honeycutt, serves on the PEPCO Environmental Community Advisory Group as the Kingman Park rep for the decommissioning of the PEPCO power plant on Benning Road. She attends workshops and meetings throughout the city with groups to discuss participating and support for the CAG, and works with partners on interpretation of legal environmental terms in everyday language so the community can understand high-level reports generated by PEPCO. And I might add, extemporaneously add their voice to that conversation, I would assume. Jay Meyer from Millsboro, Delaware, is a member of a group called Protecting Our Indian River. She is working with other stakeholders to stop the state of Delaware from issuing permits to the Alum Harum Poultry Slaughterhouse to discharge 12 million gallons of wastewater in a week into the Indian River, which will have negative impacts on water quality and human health. Marion Payan, are you here? Or are we subbing out? So Marion, we're going to have a sub for Ron Gulla, which he's writing his bio, so we'll get back to him. Janet, I'll let you introduce yourself. Charles Graham is a student leader of Free Your Voice, a human rights group at Benjamin Franklin High School in South Baltimore. Shout out to my homeboy there. Thank you. Charles is helping to lead a campaign to stop the nation's largest trash burning incinerator from being built less than a mile from his school. I've heard of your great work, and I'm proud to have you here. Ron Gulla lives in Washington County, PA. Had the second, I'm going to let you say that, Marcellus Shale well, help me with that. I know. Marcellus Shale well drilled in PA in 2005. Ron has green education people all over the world is doing green education for people all over the world about the impacts of drilling. Janet will introduce herself. Mary Jane Reyes is an individual activist for environmental protection in Lorton, Virginia, more recently focusing on the Lorton Covanta trash incinerator. Environment-focused citizen activist in Lorton, Mason Neck, Virginia since approximately 1989. Currently, she's studying and focusing on the massive Covanta trash incinerator located here, and very recently involved in a successful effort to block the permit for expansion of the massive ESI landfill in Lorton, including hosting a zero waste event for local politicians and citizens. Have I missed anybody? Diane. Hickok. Oh, yes. How did I miss you, Diane? I don't know either. I did not have this really well organized. Okay.
By the way, we did not get biographies. Yeah. Not in the package.
Okay. Well, you have the blue? No? Okay.
I apologize. I should have read in full down the bios for moderators. I was assuming that everybody had this, which is what
No worries, no worries. Well, what?
let me come back up and read your bio.
No, you don't need to read mine.
It's not
No.
necessary.
Would you like to?
Yeah.
And I'll look for
Sure.
our friend here.
Okay.
We have to find your bio because I'm not seeing it here.
Hi, I'm Janet Phoenix. I am the founder of the DC Environmental Health Collaborative. I also teach at another university that I won't name, but I'm glad to be here today. I just wanted to go over a few details about how the session will run. Our presenters have been asked to limit their remarks to 8 minutes. And when we envisioned this session, we were really hoping not to have a talking head session, and then found out a few days ago that the room was not set up in the roundtable format that we had asked for, and so it's going to be talking heads, but we're going to reserve some time at the end of the session that we can really have a conversation. And since we really want to have that conversation, I'm going to ask the people who are in the back 7 rows to come join us up at the front, because there are no mics in the room for the audience, and so if you're going to participate in the conversation, you're going to have to be closer to us. So if you could please just do that now, I would really appreciate it, and it will make for a much better session. Our presenters have been asked to address 4 questions. What have you learned that you can share about organizing and improving your neighborhood or your organization's effectiveness in advocating for itself? What challenges do you face as you work to improve your neighborhood or your organization's ability to advocate to have a healthier environment? 3, what resources would help you and your organization improve environmental quality? And 4, looking back, what would you do differently, knowing what you know now, to improve your ability to advocate on behalf of your community? You want me to read Diane's? Okay. So Diane Pitcock, who's on our panel, lived in Baltimore and Harford County areas of Maryland until 2005. Her academic background is in adult and community education. Shortly after moving to rural West Virginia to enjoy an early retirement and a quiet rural life with her husband and 2 sons, the Marcellus Shale boom came into play in West Virginia. Her area of north central West Virginia has been hit hard by horizontal shale gas drilling and the controversial fracking method associated with it. As a response to her concerns that there has not been enough research to determine potential environmental and public health impacts of fracking, she founded the West Virginia Host Farms program. It's a grassroots, volunteer-based initiative. It connects West Virginia landowners with researchers within the environmental and public health community. Participating landowners give unfettered access to their private properties on or near shale gas drilling sites so that researchers can study the potential risks fracking poses to air and water quality, health, safety, and quality of life in West Virginia's rural communities. Thanks for joining us, Diane. For all the presenters, we have an individual who's going to assist us with the timing, so please pay attention to her. She will prompt you when you're nearing the end of your time, and then at the end of the session, we're going to open it up for Q&A and discussion. Thank you very much. So, I'm going to turn it over to you, Diane.
I'm going first. Good morning. It's nice to be here, and I'm going to share with you my perspective of the situation in West Virginia concerning the fracking shale gas drilling boom that's going on. I'm assuming that most of you are familiar with some of the challenges and the concerns about fracking, so I really don't need to go into the details, but basically, my area of rural West Virginia, which again, I am not from West Virginia, so when I came there, quickly realized that it was not the same situation living in Maryland, which is a basically environmentally friendly state, compared to West Virginia. West Virginia is a sacrifice zone. It always has been, as far as the state, the exploitation of the people that live in West Virginia, and also just the fact that the people, there's a culture there that is very much embraces the fossil fuel industry because of the coal, the lumber, and oil and natural gas drilling that has been going on for centuries. Thus, that combined with the fact that technology is always an issue because we're very rural. I've been living there 9 years. I finally got DSL so I could get rid of my HughesNet satellite. But that's, in these rural counties, we have local government where they're not really informed about fracking to be able to make educated and responsible decisions, and also the industry influence, because this is their area. I mean, there's always been, you might have heard before they talk about the oil and gas industry owns West Virginia, but the influence is tremendous. And for even those, whether you're pro or against fracking in itself, it's not the same kind of fracking that's been done safely for 60 years. The shale drilling, horizontal fracking is much more destructive, and the toxic chemicals and so forth that are used are so different. So we're dealing with a lot of issues, not just the practice itself is so different, but the fact that the areas where they are doing this are usually very depressed, economically depressed areas, and the people are getting very exploited. And the health issues alone should be alarming, as well as just the fact, the quality of life. I call it the industrialization of rural West Virginia. That being said, as I said, when they described in my bio, when I moved there, I expected to retire, but when our neighbor leased and we had Marcellus wells going on all around us on his property, but on the ridges, this kind of drilling affects entire communities. Some of the challenges that I found coming into West Virginia, and again, thinking that I was just going there to retire, I never saw myself as an activist, but I now know generally, and I assume to some degree all of you are an activist in the fact that you're even here for this symposium to share ideas and in your own communities. But when you come into a place as far as like West Virginia with the attitude that you're going to make things better for these people because they really need help, you do run into a brick wall, because it's a state where the people are very proud there of their energy, their contribution to the energy problem in the country. So the oil and gas culture is not something to be easily overcome to try to move towards clean energy alternatives. And that being said, I've learned kind of the hard way by starting out going to some of these community meetings. As example, I went to one meeting 2 years ago when I was really getting started with Host Farms, and there was a man at the meeting who was a local West Virginian, but he also had a little bit of knowledge of what goes on other states by comparison. And one of the things he said to me when we went to a meeting, and a lot of us that spoke were the not from around here people that want to come in and change the world, make a difference, and we got to help these people. That kind of attitude is very difficult to present to people that, number one, they don't really even know that there's a problem, and if they do, they're concerned or they're scared because of either industry influence or, well, my brother drives the truck, I don't want him to get fired if I speak up about the pollution they're doing to our stream, or my kids having health problems. The children and the health issues are what really get them motivated, compared to the fact that people live in these communities next to compressors and gas wells that flare and vent, and they know it's making them sick, and they don't really know what to do, or the fact that they're so thankful they have a job. Somebody made that comment, I think yesterday, in one of the presentations I heard, that when you're in an economically challenged area and you have a job, you really don't care about the environment. And that is very true, because they know there's something wrong with this procedure and the impact. And I don't want to get hung up on that, but some of the challenges that I found, and this gentleman kind of laid on, he said, you people come in here every couple of years when there's a drilling boom and you think you're going to change things. He says, you'll never change these people. Now, this was a man who was a local West Virginia person, and that surprised me, but I've seen in the 2 years I've been doing this that some people don't want to be helped, or they want you to do it for them, and that is really tough. So I'm just a volunteer, as well as the people that work for our program. What we do is contact researchers, or they find us, and we have landowners who are being impacted that are more than willing to let a researcher onto their private property. And that is a key thing, because the industry's not going to say, come onto the well pad and take air quality samples or take water quality. So that's one thing they can't keep from us, is the power to invite. So it's been a successful program, and the people that participate are the ones that have been most impacted and are more than willing to have researchers come. But some of the challenges is getting on an educational outreach level, getting the people to come to community meetings. And sometimes we'll do all the work, we'll send out all the invitations and set up the meeting and so forth, but we're volunteers, and that's very hard to do that for all these different, small rural communities around us. So I kind of had to approach I'm reminded of the Field of Dreams movie, remember? If you build it, they will come. Because when I do these presentations in our local communities, or talk with these groups that they need help, they're getting ready to drill in their community, the first thing they say is, well, can you come and set up a presentation and do this and do that for us? And I've done that quite a few times in the past, where it's kind of been a disappointment to me, in that I've done all the planning. We went door to door and invited people and provided lunch, set up the meeting room and so forth, and only a handful come. And if I've brought people from out of state to give a presentation, or like the Environmental Health Network in Pennsylvania, when they came, I had like 30 or 40 people said, yeah, I'll be there, and they drifted in throughout the day, about 6 or 7 households, but nothing like I had expected. So they're in a very dangerous situation with a compressor station. Okay, one more minute. And therefore, I kind of told them, I said, you know what, if you set up the meeting, because from inside, you do the work, you have your own person locally to make the arrangements for the meeting room and do everything, we'll come and give a presentation. And that has been more successful. Again, we're up against the culture of oil and gas drilling as a way of life in West Virginia. It's the main source of their jobs. But the quality of life and the health issues are now finally getting some attention for these people, because they're seeing their kids getting sick. So that's a big plus. That's one of the things I learned more importantly than anything else. And I have lots of other things we've learned, but I want to keep my time short, for hopefully we'll have discussion time. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Charles?
Okay, so hello everybody. I'm Charles. All right. Me along with Greg, my advisor, sitting right there. We're part of Free Your Voice, a student-led human rights group based in Curtis Bay and Ben Franklin. Quick check. How many people here actually know where Curtis Bay is? Oh, good number of people. So, yeah. So when Free Your Voice first started about 3 years ago. We were basically a group of students, teachers, and community members that would come together and talk about what we thought of when we thought of human rights. Do we believe that they're being addressed in everyday society, and like, do we believe that we even have them? So using that sort of framework, I guess, we started paying closer attention to like issues going on in our community. So we eventually found that there was a plan to construct the nation's largest trash burning incinerator less than a mile away from our schools and homes in Curtis Bay. So a little background on Curtis Bay. It's somewhat of a small community down south, and it's already completely overburdened with the pollution from other sources of industrial pollution. I'm sorry if I'm a little nervous, but so about what we've learned, there isn't a lot of time to go into everything about it, but basically this plan went on without any of the community's involvement. When we first learned about it, the first thing that we wanted to do was to research it and find out how it would impact us, what our other community members thought about it, what their role was in the decision to actually making this a thing. But when we went out through the neighborhood and asked people what they thought about it, basically nobody knew it even existed. And basically everybody had serious questions or concerns. So yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not used to this sort of. Okay. Okay, so yeah.
Don't read it, just tell us about.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, that's a really big point, thank you, Ms. Rebecca, but, yeah, so basically how we've been, when we learned about it, we wanted to develop an actual strategy that we believed would actually, stop the incinerator, so we found out that the main, financing that the incinerator would be getting would be from its energy sales. So we learned that Energy Answers, the company that's building the incinerator, is contracted with public entities throughout Baltimore and throughout Maryland to buy energy, for those public entities to buy energy. And basically our strategy has been to pressure to those public entities, especially Baltimore City Public Schools, who are also in contract, to potentially opt out of the contract. So, yeah, one of the main reasons we've been going to presentation after presentation about this issue is because we believe that we are basically on the road to winning, and I guess another reason is the reason I feel like we're all here is that we realize that these problems aren't something that we could only face with only the frontline communities that are facing the problem. We need to handle this together. But, so.
How you guys are organized?
Well, basically we've been going out connecting with other students and other teachers and other community members about sorry. How, okay, so. Sorry.
Yeah, speak.
Talk about your January meeting and your spring plans.
Okay, I heard two things, but okay, so yes, like Rebecca said, the main two events that we're having coming up next year. One is what we call the strategic dialogue, which will basically be a place where we talk about the positive alternatives that we want to see in place of the incinerator. We have some pretty cool stuff, we actually have a community member that worked in the solar power industry that actually came up with a plan, but we don't have a definite answer just yet. But Yeah, and the strategic dialogue is not only going to be about the incinerator, it's also going to be a good place for other human rights-based issues. Well, to talk about those, but, sorry. And also our Big Spring Action, which is, in spring of 2015, those public entities have the chance to opt out of their contract. So that is basically, we're planning for that. So there's a lot of things about this issue that I can't really get into with this short amount of time, but I think that's basically it.
Thank you.
And thanks to my co-panelists, I wanted the youth voice to go because it's so important to develop leadership. And I'd heard of the work there, and we were thrilled to get them it took a while to connect with them, but we got them on the panel, so we're very happy. Tariq, speaking of youth, come on up and keep it moving.
Good morning. As far as neighborhoods and communities activating for themselves, as far as my experiences, I see that people usually don't see the bigger picture, like some of the leaders see it, or some of us see it. People need to see the problems and the issues as it affects them and as it pertains to them. So we have to sit down and talk to people, understand where they're coming from, and bring these issues to them and how it relates to them. Challenges that we face in our communities when bringing the issues to people are basically people don't understand how the issues are affecting them, I would say. They need to see, because they have immediate issues that aren't dealt with. So a lot of these immediate issues that aren't dealt with, we have to show them, well, this is how these environmental issues and other issues are also impacting you as well. So we have to have more relation to individuals. I wouldn't approach the issue assuming that people know about it or care about it, but I would talk to them and use my knowledge and show them how the issues impact the problems in their life, and then show them what actions they can do to change those problems. I didn't really bring much to say, but I hope what I said was effective. I think there needs to be a lot more individual relations to see where people are coming from if communities are to be more effective in advocating for themselves. Oh, yeah. Recently, I delivered a declaration on behalf of the youth from around the world during the United Nations Interfaith Summit on Climate Change in New York, which was organized by the Secretary General and also the World Council of Churches. I think that a lot of people will come together. As religious people, we came together because we seen it as a moral issue. Everybody's not religious, but everybody is impacted by this. And eventually, I think people can see through their life circumstances, right and wrong, and how things are affecting them. So as long as those issues are brought to them and how it affects them, then I believe that they can come together as well. Jews, Christians, and indigenous groups, others came together around the issue of climate change during that meeting. So I think it's a similar principle here when advocating for communities as well. People can also come together when they see how it affects them personally. And for religious people, usually it's a moral issue. For other people, it might not always be that. So have to relate to people one-on-one to see where they're coming from before we make generalizations.
Thank you.
Hey everybody, I'm Jay Meyer from Millsboro, Delaware. Our group is Protecting Our Indian River. we kind of came about because by accident, we found out that they were going to put a large poultry slaughterhouse right next to our houses, right on the Indian River. We've had, our group, no experience whatsoever as far as being environmentalist or anything. The only way we found out was that somebody found a piece of paper on the ground that said something about a poultry slaughterhouse coming 50 feet from our homes, and it was a surprise to us. We didn't know what to do. I'm the youngest in the group. I'm 68 years old. There's about 5 other people, and they're older than I am, and we no college, no experience in environmental activities or anything like that. We didn't know what to do. So we, there was a meeting, found out there was a meeting 2 days from then, and we went to the meeting to try to voice our opinion. We didn't know what to say, what to do, or anything. Luckily enough, maybe this isn't luckily enough, Maria Payan from SRAP was in the hospital with her mother and heard somebody talking about this poultry plant. She contacted us and really gave us some direction on what to do, what not to do, because we didn't know what direction to go into. I think one of the main things that people need is, if you're starting out brand new, is somebody to give you direction and help as far as ideas. The policy of the state of Delaware is basically the mushroom policy, if you know what that is. They keep you in the dark and covered with, you know. And that's how we, you know, they do things in our state. We've got no support whatsoever from our senators or state representatives or anything. All they talk about is jobs. It's going to bring 700 jobs to the community, much needed jobs that people need to work. Well, there's another poultry plant that's less than maybe 2 miles away that has had 300 job openings in their slaughterhouse for the past 2 years and can't find anybody to take them. And our response to the state of Delaware was, you know, if we can't find people to work at the plants that you already have, where are you going to bring these 700 people in? And of course, they give us no answer on that. As far as once we got organized with Maria's help, you know, we've got a lot of, well, not a lot, very little support, but what support we have gotten is through Facebook. We have a Facebook page and a website that we ended up getting developed. And we got some community response from that. But most of the people just didn't want to get involved. I mean, it's, you know, they referred to us as a bunch of NIMBYs, you know, not in our backyard type of thing. But anytime you're going to dump 12 million gallons of wastewater into a river that's maybe 200 yards from your home, you know, it causes concern. And that's what we've been fighting. We did a couple of appeals, one through the Widener Law School, another through a lawyer that we had to hire. And to kind of reiterate the fact about the mushroom policy in the state of Delaware, you know, the judge said to the Alan Harem, this Korean poultry firm's lawyers, he says, you know something, in Delaware we put more effort into regulations for a cell phone tower than we have even in looking at this poultry plant. You know, they never got any approval from any agency, public health or anything. They just the state of Delaware basically just rubber stamped the thing and says, hey, yeah, let's put this thing in. And it's been a tough battle, a real tough battle, but you need support from other groups. This year has been a really great learning experience for me and my wife. We've learned a lot. We feel that contacts is a big thing, you know. I've actually, you know, spoken to some other organizations, and they're trying to do the same exact thing, I think in Sanderson, North Carolina, putting a poultry plant right in the middle of a community. And I've, you know, given them some information and contacts and things like that to try to help them. But it's a tough battle when you're fighting City Hall. Our battle is basically like a David and Goliath type of thing. Nobody wants to listen to us. Nobody wants to hear from us. Tell you what else I got here. You know, we found out, and this is how our Department of Natural Resources work. Prior to all this, back in 1991, there was a pickle factory there. Well, the pickle factory found out that they had contaminated the land, and they wanted to inform the state of Delaware. So they sent a letter back in 1991 telling the state of Delaware, Department of Natural Resources, that the land was contaminated, that there's a plume of contamination that's heading towards our development that's going to probably affect our drinking wells and the water in our neighborhood, and the state did nothing about it. The only way we found out about it was through a Freedom of Information Act. We were asking for information on this poultry plant, and this letter just from 1991 just happened to pop in there. And we kind of think that somebody put it in there on purpose just to let us know that, there are problems in the area. It's a brownfield site, and that, it's just another thing that we need to look at. But as far as community involvement, it's been really tough. Like I said, not many people really want to get involved. They're concerned about retribution from the state, other government agencies and things like that. But like I say, you need a good support group, and our support group has been very buy-in and social responsible agriculture product. So, that's all I have. Thank you.
Michelle Blunt?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Michelle Bundy. I am here on behalf of the Brentwood Civic Association, which is in Washington, D.C. and far northeast. I'm really here just to educate you or inform you about a situation where we have been continuously fighting since 1980, trash recycling and or trash dumping in my neighborhood. My neighborhood is primarily African Americans. Most of my neighbors moved there in 1953, with some new neighbors coming since then because of gentrification. However, the trash company's been there since 1980. It was supposed to be trash recycling. They recycled trash for exactly one day. The next day, they came to trash dumping. We now get trash from D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. Yesterday, I noticed a trash truck whose tag was Illinois. I had pictures on my phone, but we don't have the visual today. So all I can tell you is that we are, unfortunately, victims of environmental racism. It doesn't seem to be getting any better. It's getting worse. We have been in court with Rose & Rose Law Firm, and when we went to court, we lost the court case. The judge who came out investigated the site, and for that one day, they cleaned up the site. So since they cleaned up the site that one day, the judge gave them a consent decree that allowed them to operate as a trash recycling facility again for an additional 25 years. I'm 59 years old. I'm standing in front of you with chronic kidney disease. I have exactly 10% kidney function. I've been diagnosed since 2001, and I'm supposed to be on dialysis. I can only tell you, thanks be to God, I'm not on dialysis as of yet, and I have a constant fight with my doctor, including this week, about that. I am waiting for a kidney transplant, but in the meantime, my neighbors are as old as 86 years old. They're trapped. They can't go anywhere. They can't sell their houses for a decent, fair market value, and they cannot live anyplace else in Washington, D.C. So we are prisoners in our own community. In the summertime, we cannot open our back doors because the trash facility is within 300 feet, which is against the law, of a residential community. But there again, we're African Americans, we're mixed, and we have several Section 8 communities. So what they've done with the Section 8 people, who are generally welfare recipients, they have now decided to sell the land where they are, and the developers are coming in to wipe them out and reestablish single-family homes. Where these people go, they have no idea. The joke is everybody goes to Ward 9. The most recent thing that happened is that in February of this year, Mike Ewald and a few other members of the community testified before the Committee on Transportation and the Environment, which is overseen by Councilwoman Mary Che, regarding the trash, regarding the impact it's having on the neighbors in the neighborhood, recycling. What we got out that committee hearing was Councilwoman Che telling us to sell our houses and move to Cleveland Park, but most of us can't even afford to even walk in Cleveland Park. Then what we did do is our own council member, who's Councilman McDuffie, who is African American, decided that they would table the entire idea until after the summer. So for all summer, we smelled the same trash. We had the same rats, rodents. I've had several white neighbors who have had to enlist private contractors to remove raccoons from their homes because DC government does not remove the raccoons. So what is behind my house is the Department of Public Works, which is a DC facility, trash trucks, then independent trash contractors who come in every day. Their net proceeds are $100,000 per month in trash. Trash is a big business. We get nothing in Ward 5 from the proceeds of their trash. We get not $1. Behind them is a dialysis center. So anybody who knows what dialysis is, raise your hand. Okay, so you know what that is about. We have a dialysis center. We have a children's hair shop. We have a liquor store. We have a sandwich shop. We have the giant grocery store adjacent. What they did was they put up a wall. So the wall is supposed to cover the trash trucks. And anybody coming along Brentwood Road, you won't see it, but you can definitely smell it. So while you guys have spring flowers, we smell trash starting with March. March, April, May, June, July, August, September. As far as Indian summer, we smell trash. So we asked the council member, what is it you want us to do besides sell and get out? Because we're not leaving fast enough. So now what we have is a council member who put in the legislation that was approved where the facility is cleaned twice a month. They still refuse to get rid of it because Zone 5 is an industrial zone. And then at the same time, increase the taxes or increase the penalties. But the penalties are what? $100, $200. So how is the penalties affecting them when the trash is $100,000 a month taking trash in and out? That's not very helpful for any of us. My residents are 86 years old. My seniors are disabled. We don't have anybody to help us. And then the latest thing this week was for the council member to try to invoke eminent domain, which is to take the property and to use eminent domain to switch out trash for the Washington Area Sewer Authority trucks. That's not exactly what we're looking for. That's not exactly what we're looking for. So we had to constantly call and ask them, look, of your 13 city members, council, please don't vote to support this legislation. Please don't vote to support it. I had to go to a Washington Post reporter, Mike DeBonis, who is white, crying to him, asking him, please don't let them put this there. I'm the only person who's motivated in my community because, unfortunately, what one of the other guys just said, people don't want to be bothered. They'll sign a petition, but the petition doesn't do anything because you're fighting big government, you're fighting big business, and trash is a money-making business. In my testimony, I asked them, we have 175 private-owned homes, and we pay excess of $1,500 a year in taxes. So our families have paid $262,500 yearly for taxes, yet we can't enjoy a square foot of our property. Our taxes help to pay the salaries of the city administrators and the city legislators. So the page asks you, what have you learned? I've learned that in order to bring about positive change, my neighbors and I have to become more proactive about what we want in Brentwood. The challenges we face is the money and economics of trash. Trash is a money-making business. Elderly and disabled African Americans, as well as our new neighbors, through gentrification, have absolutely nowhere to go. And any organization that's here that could help us mobilize, reach the city council or our Councilmember McDuffie, and help us in giving us leadership or guidance, we would certainly appreciate that. And looking back on what I know now and what I would have organized earlier to try and create a group that would be proactive on behalf of the residents of Brentwood, my senior citizens, and the children who need a healthy environment in which to live. Thank you very much.
Gwendolyn? Honey?
Good morning. My name is Gwen Honeycutt. I represent Friends of Kingdom Park in Northeast DC. Once you enter our community, you can just look at in a distance and see the stacks, the smoke that's been coming from the Pepco plant for over 100 years. In 2011, Pepco was under a consent decree to dismantle and to close down the plant, which is what they're in the process of doing. In order to notify the community, Pepco created a community advisory group, and Dr. Phoenix and myself are members of that group. That group was started in 2012 and it officially began in 2013. Some of our challenges have been, we're average citizens. Some of us have degrees, some of us don't. That has nothing to do with the issue. The issues are Pepco has done testing, and we convinced them to give us the raw data. But we don't have scientists, we don't have chemical engineers. We need experts to look at that raw data and to help us interpret that raw data. With the help of Dr. Phoenix and other CAG members of the group, we have been able to interpret the first batch of data that they've given us, but we still need help. Our second problem is we need to convince Pepco to conduct a human study. Pepco refuses to test anything outside of the footprint of that plant, other than the Anacostia River, because that's covered in but right on the edge of the Anacostia River. That's what they're testing. They're not testing any people. We have high rates of lung cancer, asthma, thyroid disease. People have been dying for years, but people are complacent. I'm guilty. I've lived in my neighborhood for 38 years, and I wasn't concerned. If a neighbor told me what was going on, oh, that's awful. But now that I'm on this committee, I understand that you need to go to these groups, go to these meetings outside of your group, network, and come back to the community and share what information that you've learned. Our third issue that we have with Pepco, and our group haven't brought this up before the CAG group yet, but I attended a meeting 2 weeks ago and found out that old concrete has asbestos in it. Well, what Pepco has done is they've dismantled the stacks, the buildings, all of that is basically gone. They're taking the steel and the old concrete and pushing it aside, and they're going to use that as fill-in to fill in the holes that they've created. Well, that's recontaminating the soil. So now, when we have our next CAT meeting, we have to address this issue of recontamination because they don't see anything wrong with it. What they did find is they was dismantling the stacks in some of the buildings were excessive amounts of asbestos. They abated that, cleaned it up, and had a company come and take it out. But they haven't addressed the issue of the creation of the original concrete 100 years ago with asbestos in it. And it's our job as members of the community to find out, they got to test that cement and that steel to see how much of asbestos is in it and why are you using that to recontaminate the soil. So basically, that's our dilemma. But thanks to Dr. Phoenix and some of her colleagues, we are moving in the right direction and they're giving us guidance, but we need other people. We need other scientists, other resources, because we have no budget. Everything is volunteer. So if I could do anything to improve my community, I will continue doing what I'm doing. I'm networking. After I meet once a month, when we have our CAG meeting, I sit down and I type up a report, and I send the report to the president of Friends of Kingdom Park. I make sure I attend the meetings or someone replace me at the meetings to share the report that I sent to the president. And I asked the president to put my report on the listserv so people can be aware of what's going on in our neighborhood. And that's it.
I'm Mary Jane Reyes, and I do not do public speaking, so bear with me today. Yesterday, my sister told me to always provide a why, because that is what is most interesting to people. Thinking in terms of why, then, why is Washington, D.C. sending their waste to my hometown of Lorton, Virginia for incineration in the nation's 4th largest incinerator? Why was an incinerator located in my hometown in the first place? I think the answer is affluent areas send their waste to less affluent communities because they can. Municipal solid waste incineration is the most expensive and the most toxic way to manage waste or to make energy. Combustion turns trash into toxic air pollution and toxic ash, making for smaller but more toxic landfills. I'm told the incinerator was originally sited in Lorton to make it convenient since the landfill was already in Lorton. The decision to choose Lorton for this incinerator also reflects a stark form of environmental racism, as the DC prison complex was there, and those victims were then trapped next door to the pollution source at all times. Combustion creates dangerous toxins. Assuming the same energy, you'll have to bear with me with some numbers, I'm a number person. Combustion creates dangerous toxins. Assuming the same energy output between burning coal or burning waste, trash incinerators release 28 times as much dioxin than coal, 2.5 times more carbon dioxide than coal, twice as much carbon monoxide as coal, 3.2 times as much nitrogen oxides, 6 to 14 times. That's 6 to 14 times as much mercury as coal, burning coal, and nearly 6 times as much lead and 20% more sulfur dioxides than burning coal. Fairfax County is the 3rd wealthiest county in the nation, and in this context, Lorton is relatively low income. And Carol Morello in the Washington Post in 2012 said, Lorton is one of the most diverse places in the entire country. These relatively less affluent and racially diverse Lorton area residents are disproportionately subjected to exposure to releases of heavy metals and other toxins. More numbers. For example, 54 tons of coarse particulate matter, that's PM10, out of 75 tons released in Fairfax County is released in Lorton. 2,250 tons of the 2,745 tons of nitrogen dioxide released in the county is released in or near Lorton. That's 92%. And if you think, these are tons we're talking about. 655 of 692 tons, or 95% of carbon monoxide released in Fairfax County is released in or near Lorton, assuming my math is correct. The question of whether Lorton residents are statistically sicker with higher birth defects per capita versus other parts of Fairfax County or in Prince William County will not be answered. That is because if health clusters are documented, Lorton property values would plummet, leaving the young, vibrant, diverse, and less affluent residents in fear and worry. Why didn't Fairfax County educate these young families shopping for homes of the potential for health risks from methane and toxin exposure living adjacent to a massive landfill, actually 3 landfills, and massive incinerator? Why did Fairfax County close down the air quality monitoring station in Lorton. Then, after I wrote this, I noticed that there were questions I was supposed to answer, so I don't know how much time I have or whether you want me to address that, or I could just stop here. Oh, okay. You said, what have I learned? I have no group, I'm an individual activist. I want to say that one person can make a difference, not because I have, but because my mentor, 25 years ago, was a woman who saved our peninsula from development. What challenges, this is a different kind of fight that I'm fighting all by myself, because I can't just spread the word and talk to the reporters and put it in all the paper and put it in the library, because I don't want to cause a panic. I don't want people to know how dangerous it really is. I just want the politicians to know, so I'm just trying to address the politicians. See, I get choked out. I don't want to do public speaking. Anyway, and then what resources would help me? Scientific studies, I suppose. Money for scientists. And looking back, what I do differently? Nothing. I've just done what I can do. And anyway, I just want to tell you about something good. We recently had Fairfax County Planning Commission had hearings, and people testified, and a permit was approved to expand a massive landfill that's in Lorton, a construction debris landfill. So it was a done deal. It was coming. But through citizen activism in Lorton, a hopelessly looking case worked, and the permit was denied. And so we won our most recent battle.
So, Ron, are you here? Yep. Okay, come on up. And then I'm going to introduce Janet, who we didn't get a chance to do that before, and she's going to field questions from the audience right after Ron goes. And then I know Maria said some folks have driven some ways, so we're going to give them priority to speak first once she helps us identify.
Morning, everybody. One thing I need to tell you is you're always going to hear about jobs. Jobs, jobs, jobs with drilling, right? Jobs, jobs, jobs with all industry. I worked with the budget and planning out of Harrisburg. I gave them a tour of what was going on in western Pennsylvania over a year ago. They were at a conference, actually it was a year and a half ago. They were at a conference at Duquesne University in November of 2013. And this is their study. This is what they came up with. And they studied 4 states, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. Now our governor, good old Corbett, who's of course gone now, amen. Of course now, I'm a little worried about Governor Wolf, because a lot of people don't know that his daughter is a senior geologist. And I'm just trying to think of the name of the company, Environmental Resources something. What is it? I don't think that's it. But anyway, I just found this out last week. So here, we got another connection. So anyway, this is what they came up with, and they presented at the 2-day conference at Duquesne. New York, Ohio, PA, and West Virginia had jobs before Shell. 38% of all producing wells in the country in 1990 and 32% in 2000. Economic benefit to counties with significant drilling activity that insulated them from the Great Recession. Little overall impact on the state economy in any state studied. Shell-related employment is a small share of overall employment. Less than 1% in West Virginia, less than 0.5% in all other states. Region-wide, Shell-related employment accounts for nearly 33,000 jobs. Our government promoted 250, our previous government. Out of every, okay, let me go back. Region-wide, Shell-related employment accounts for nearly 33,000 jobs. 1 out of every 794 jobs. The education and health sectors, by contrast, account for 4.5 million jobs in the region, 1 out of every 6. Between 2005 and 2012, Shell created fewer than 4 new Shell-related jobs per well, not 31 jobs per well. So those are some statistics, and these are actual numbers, and they worked on this. So, but again, and it was budget and planning out of Harrisburg. I'm here to tell you it's not safe. I don't care what regulations they have in place. They're going to be the best state, going to have the best practices. Get the exemptions off the table. They're exempt from clean air, clean water, safe drinking water, the right to know, the Superfund Act. The only reason why they're exempt is because the liability is left upon you, the community, and you, the landowner, not the industry. Get the exemptions off the table, see if they can still be in business. And why are they the only business that are exempt? Because they know. If you come to Washington County and see the lawsuits that have been filed, they're stacking up like cordwood. Washington County, Pennsylvania. There are lawsuits against Consol, Chevron, Range, Chesapeake, Atlas, Mark West, Williams, it goes on and on. Also in Allegheny County. I have studied this and I have followed this because I was also a victim of it. And my family's in the back of the room. I had a 141-acre farm. My 3-acre pond turned black. We didn't do it. I called the DEP. The DEP reps gave me nothing but a line of baloney. I worked in the industry, but I never told anybody I had a background working in the oil and gas industry because I used to work for Hughes Tool Company, Howard Hughes' company. I've been on hundreds of well sites. I've logged information from top to bottom because we were the only company that logged all information which was sent to our regional office, which was sent to Houston, Texas, which was sent to the government because they keep track of the rig count. You're always going to hear the word anecdotal. That all these stories are anecdotal of people being sick, livestock dying, and they like to put the spin on everything. I was out there digging up all the terrible stories that were happening, and people were contacting me because if you Google my name, Ron Gulla, G-U-L-L-A, I'm all over the internet. I have never put myself there once. People call me, I go to their state, I tell the story. I was in Maryland. I spoke in Annapolis several years ago in front of your legislature. And I had your Farm Bureau in front of me. I had the Marcellus Shale Coalition in front of me. And I had the chief of, the president and CEO of Chief Oil and Gas in front of me. And then I went up after listening to their baloney again. I undermined all of them. There is a book, and some of you probably have already seen it. I tried to spout this out yesterday, The Shell-Filled Stories. This is being revised. And this book should be a half an inch thick, just in Pennsylvania. A lot of stories are not being told. A lot of stories, people have been gagged. Their lawyers do not want them to talk, so the information can't be printed. You could find this if you go under friendsoftheharmed.com, Shell-Filled Stories, or you could call the Thomas Merton Center. The phone number is 412-361-3022. They're going to charge you a few dollars for it because the money goes to Marcellus protest in Pittsburgh. And, it helps their cause. And, I work with Doug Shields and Bridget Shields, and Doug Shields was a councilman for the city of Pittsburgh. We got the ban in Pittsburgh a few years ago. It was the first ban in the country. I was there. I spoke in front of the city council. I have nothing to lie about. I had lawyers destroy my case. Two law firms. The first law firm destroyed my discovery, Burns White. It was Burns White in Hickton. So, I am in litigation right now with a real estate company. I'm not giving up. They will have to put a bullet in my head to stop me. And here are pictures of cattle. This calf here, if you can see, its eye, its pupil is white. I took the liver out of this calf. This farmer had cattle laying all over. This guy lost around about 95 head. Go ahead, pass them around. He lost cattle, and these weren't even horizontal wells. These were vertical wells. But they're exempt. So, and we also have gas migration. I had that on my property. That's a very serious problem. Mr. Engelder from Penn State, Terry Engelder, who's the geologist up there who promotes this, I'd like to see what's in his bank account. But we do have serious migration. The casings fail, the cement fails, and one more thing I want to say before I end up here, close up. The next time you bite into a nice juicy steak or a nice juicy hamburger, drink a cold glass of water or a cold glass of milk, wonder where it came from. Because all the farms and ranches are being leased.
Can we just give everyone on the panel another round of applause? I rarely get to be around such strong beings and brave souls. It really is an honor, and people say that as a platitude, but I actually mean it. Janet Phoenix is going to take some questions from the audience, and I think Maria is going to help us also identify some folks that have come out of town to kind of follow up. But, you know, someone mentioned that you need the experts to support you. And Janet is an assistant research professor in the Department of Health Policy at George Washington University School of Public Health and Health Services. Dr. Phoenix manages Breathe Easy, an asthma home visiting project for Breathe DC, a nonprofit org dedicated to lung health. And since joining the Department of Health Policy, she's worked on child health issues. She was a recipient of a health policy fellowship from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation and spent her fellowship year working on health care reform efforts in the Senate, U.S. Senate. She served on 2 federal advisory committees, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention's Lead Poisoning Advisory Committee and the Environmental Protection Agency Health Protection Advisory Committee. She has international experience consulting for USAID, Physicians for Social Responsibility, and the Environmental Protection Agency in projects in Poland, Egypt, Senegal, and South Africa. And she manages the National Lead Information Center, a toll-free hotline and clearinghouse for professionals. And she's committed to social justice, which is what I think is common to all of the conversations here today. And someone mentioned earlier charity. And I just want to say that, you know, the difference between charity and equity is power. And everyone here today has talked about an issue of power, whether it's information or lack thereof, and what then communities do in the wake or the absence of that information or that power. So please welcome Dr. Janet Phoenix.
Jacoby, you want to say something?
Yes, I don't know, I wasn't here at the beginning, so I don't know how the session was framed. But, you know, part of this session was really about the reason why we're organizing. We're talking about the power that you do have.
Yep.
Right? So we talk a lot about, in our social movements, you know, there's some negative things that we're fighting against. But I think part of the point about this, before we talk about power, is empower and empower. So EM is like, I'm going to bring power. I just need to start moving away from that.
Yep.
IN is you have power. How can you better access it and use it and work together? So this is what we're trying to talk about, the power that you have, the power that you see on this panel, right? So when we talk about moving forward as a social movement, you know, the common issue, as Ron mentioned, we talked about the issue earlier, the playbook. We're fighting the same playbook, folks.
Right.
It's the same playbook, regardless, it's the same system, the same drivers that undergird. So we know that to address it, we got to use our power that we have, and the power in numbers, power in information, and making sure that we all come together through that humanity, right? Human unity. So that unity of this, what people are doing here, I think try to address these issues in a more collective way. So I just wanted to say that about power, because some people talk about power. We say someone else has, people have power. We all have power, right? And we just need to find it and be able to use it and work together better to use that power.
I want to say one thing. Time is so short, and you know, you can't tell people enough about this in 10 minutes. All right? This is too big. But what you all need to know is PA Act 13 in Pennsylvania has opened the doors, which is a state Supreme Court ruling, has opened the doors to lawsuits. There are lawsuits now. The one just came out. It was filed. I know quite a bit about it. That the landowner's water well got contaminated. They have an impoundment pond on the neighbor's property who leased. That impoundment pond, there are wells there, pipelines, and again, their water well is contaminated. They have city water now because city water came through a little over a year ago. The neighbor is now being sued because they leased their land to Range Resources. And now they have disturbed that landowner's life and property value and health. So now that's what's happening. You're going to start to see the neighbors sue the neighbors. Neighbors that have not been, that did not lease, because these folks never leased their property either. But their neighbor did. So right now the lawsuits are, the door's open for lawsuits, which is, that's going to be the best thing that could have ever happened.
Yeah, one of the things I mentioned about that when we give talks is, and it's happening in West Virginia, because Rod and I know each other from kind of mentoring the efforts that are going on in multi-states, but the idea of, it's basic common law, what one person does on their property cannot harm another person or their property. And that's why with shale gas drilling, it's not your conventional wells where they're quarter-acre footprint. They're impacting whole communities when they run those horizontal legs 2, 3, 4 miles out underneath and contaminate somebody else's water a mile down the road. So that being said, a lot of environmental law firms are coming, and of course they want to go after the big money, the corporations. And on our local level, we're saying, sue the DEP for malfeasance in office because they're not protecting us. And that's happening, you know, in some other states, but not in West Virginia. But also the other thing is that you don't want to say the mineral owners, because in West Virginia we're split estate, and some people in Pennsylvania own their minerals, these farmers that are leasing, but a lot of people in West Virginia just own their surface. So when somebody else owns the minerals under you and lease, they can put that well right on your surface to go down to get those minerals. So you're being harmed, so therefore you should have a right to sue. And that being said, it's not that we want to attack other people as mineral owners. Well, they're fortunate to own their minerals. They're going to make a lot of money, hopefully. But by the same token, they have a responsibility not to devastate somebody else's quality of life or their property or their health or anything. And by approaching the lawsuits, like it sounds like sue your neighbor. I mean, it doesn't sound like a good thing, but if a few of them get started and get that attention, what I told people at a recent thing was that you can have as a mineral owner that if they want to lease your minerals to drill shale gas, you can tell them, well, I will lease you you can reserve part of your mineral tract and say, that person's house is right there. You can't drill closer than so many feet from their house. So you can do what the legal system isn't doing for you if you have the minerals to say that you can drill on my mineral tract, but there's surface people living there, so don't go anywhere near their house. And you can write your contract that way with the companies. So if we can force people to realize that as mineral owners, we'll be at an advantage because they'll protect their neighbors. So the sue your neighbor might be an approach to scare them enough to realize that they have the power to hold the reins in a little bit on the industry, if they choose to let the industry drill.
But it's not a safe
So,
process.
Yeah, oh, I know it's
I'm
not a
going
safe
to
process,
ask,
but
I'm
it's
going
a
to
step
ask
in the
the
right direction.
the panelists if you could hold your comments just for a moment, because we have a lot of people in the audience who want to have an opportunity to ask questions or perhaps make a brief comment. And I'm going to ask the people in the audience to kind of adhere to the same rules that we gave to the panelists, that if you can keep your questions and your comments very, very brief, and also try to think thoughtfully about what it is you're standing up to say. And I'm going to ask people to stand up and identify themselves before they make a comment or ask a question. But to think about the purpose of the session, as Dr. Wilson was kind enough to remind us, is really that we're trying to bring information to the light that will help people in two capacities, either to help them with their local struggle so that they can go back home with a tool or a strategy or a thought or a contact that will help them with the struggle they're dealing with in their own community, or to help the students who are in the audience to gain some knowledge so that they can grow into better technical experts for their own communities or for other communities. So those are kind of the two purposes we're trying to address here. So please try to keep your comments brief and to those points so that you can kind of bring the information that's important to share so that other people can leave better informed than they were when they came to this session. Now, I know we have two people who are supposed to have priorities for the first question or comment, and I don't know who they are. Rebecca, do you know who they are?
I can address that. My name's Maria Cayenne. I invited Anna to take and talk. This is a community I work with. This is about empowerment. And this can work not only for their fighting factory farms, it can work for Marcellus Shale.
Okay, you got 2 minutes. Okay.
$50 a year, you can teach your community how to test, hold them accountable. I'm gonna let Anna
2 minutes.
go. She has 9 kids and she got away for a couple hours.
Introduce yourself.
Hi, my name's Anna Jones. Like Maria said, I'm fighting CAFOs, which are factory farms in Pennsylvania, Adams County, around Gettysburg. And I can go into horror stories too. I'm living it right now with my family. We're affected with our health, our quality of life, flies, smell, but basically the long and short of it is we are involved in the lawsuit also, but that's something that's a trajectory. You know, it's years down the road. And the thing that Maria gave us that we can do right here and right now is water testing. And I've already gotten them once. Our neighbors who built this factory farm, 81,000 chickens. It's an egg-laying facility. I got them once with the US EPA for a discharge of ammonia into our streams. We have the Clean Streams Act. And I also got them this past winter because they discharged again. They actually sprayed manure on our property and it ran into our stream with the snow melt. So, you know, you're dealing with ignoramuses basically. I mean, there's no short way to put it. But with water testing, it's concrete, it's lab certified, and they can't question it. And like my husband says, it keeps them honest. Maybe I have to live next to 81,000 chickens, but by golly, you're going to play by some of the rules that our state did put it on the books, and this is how you're going to do it. And if anybody wants one of these, like Maria said, $50, you can go on Amazon.com, and you can get yourself nitrate testing strips, ammonia testing strips, and pH is the same things you would use to test your pool water. And you go out there, you test the water, and this book will tell you what the rates are, and if you have a discharge, you take it to a US EPA certified lab, which we are lucky enough to have one about 20 minutes down the road. And like I said, I got them once, and I'm looking to do it again. And it's something I can do. I'm a stay-at-home mom. 9 kids, but you know what? I can dip a dipper into a stream and I can test some water, and by golly, I can make you pay a little. And that's what it's about. You know, maybe I'm not going to win. It is David versus Goliath, but at least I have some kind of power. And that means a lot to me. And I think it means a lot to all of you too.
Maria? Was there someone else, Maria?
No, that was it. And
Okay.
if anyone,
I'll get to you.
like, she is the greatest at this. Her, to the young man up there, This is something anyone can do. She will tell you it's simple. We made it not complicated. Anyone can do it. I'm one intimidated by technology. So, you know, I can do this easily. I can train you. $50, here's my phone number, 717-456-5800. If you would like to set this up for your community, I'm more than happy. Just give me a call and I'll help you do it, okay?
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to shift to the questions, and I know there was a hand in the first or the second row. I think it's the lady in the vest. There was a hand that went up a few moments ago. Maybe that person.
I'm fine.
No, you're fine. Okay. So we're going to take the first question. I'm going to encourage, again, the people who are in the back 5 or 6 rows. It's going to be hard for you to participate in this conversation if you don't move forward, because we don't have microphones that we can put into the audience. So you won't hear the questions, or you may not fully hear the answers if you don't move forward. Okay, first question.
All right, this is actually for me.
If you could stand, please, and identify yourself.
All right, I'm Justin. I'm a part of the Student Sustainability Committee here at UMD. So my question is actually about divestment, and since this is for Ms. Pitcock.
Okay.
Yeah, so West Virginia last election elected Shelley Moore Capito. They elected Mr. Mooney. And on top of that, they have Governor Tomlin and they have Senator Manchin, who made their cases clear. They don't care about environmental protection. They care about jobs, jobs, jobs. So how do you get local communities in West Virginia to have energy security for themselves and advance their economies without industry just running over them?
Well, part of the climate, and it is I want to say, fracking is not a political question to me, because all of us need clean water and clean air, whether you're Republican, Democrat, whether you're social issues or this or that, or whatever. But that's the first thing we need to do, is get the local people to realize that. And I came from Maryland, and moving to West Virginia, I see no difference between the Republicans and the Democrats, because it's a drilling state, so they are both supporting it, because most of our legislature, whether they are Republican or Democrat, are making a lot of money from it. That being said, we're finding there are some environmental parties. There's a mountain party in West Virginia, which is like part of the Green Party, and they refer to themselves, because West Virginia is a big hunting state, so everybody's pro-gun. Well, we're Greens with guns. I mean, what a campaign slogan with West Virginia, you know? But most people in West Virginia, and I can't be political because of, wanting to get funding and or 501c3. So I don't lobby or do any of that. I just provide the information to those that do. But most people don't even know we have a Green Party. But if we could just shift the focus so that people, like, I always told them, I said, don't make it political, make it platform, if you want to start a PAC, okay, for example. Take back West Virginia, for the mountains, for the people. Like, they fought mountaintop removal for years. But that's the kind of thing you do. You get issue-oriented, not political, party-oriented, and come up with those kind of things. So people in the local communities, it's all about jobs, they say. It's a transient workforce with oil and gas. I mean, they come, we've got man camps, we call them, where they have RVs set up, and they're sending their paychecks home to Oklahoma, Wyoming, wherever they are. Our local boys drive a chemical truck for $10, $15 an hour with chemicals they don't even know about, and they think life's good because they can buy a new four-wheeler. And that sounds derogatory, but that is sometimes, I don't want to say the mentality, but that's sometimes what's important to them over the fact that we're fighting for our clean, energy and clean water and all. So it's a culture that has to be overcome, and that's one way to do it, is make them realize that you've been victimized too long. Stop being a sacrifice state. Fight for your own, because outsiders own West Virginia. I mean, basically. So I hope that answers your question. Okay.
Great answer. Next question or comment? Yes.
So those of you who were in the morning session, I started a thought, and cut me off, so I'm going to finish what I was saying. So I was talking about working with African American churches and hearing what their concerns are and trying to empower them within the environmental movement. And we all know about the stormwater mitigation fee, and people were up in arms about that. But what I want to say is, when the government does give you the opportunity to speak, that we can be in a unique position to empower people to go speak. So the city of Baltimore had a series of 4 community meetings where they asked for input from the community about, so they're going to be collecting all this money with the stormwater fees. What are they going to do? They need to know what to do with it. And they said they wanted community input. Well, so I happen to be in, and I think God places us in certain places at certain times for certain reasons. happen to be working with a community leader, that didn't look like me, that looked like the community I'm trying to work with, and give her the information that she can disseminate through social media and others and their networks and their listservs, so that they can get the people there to say, well, if there's going to be that money, we want jobs. We want that money to come to job training programs because that's their issue. And ultimately, we get clean water out of that, but we've given them the power and they can use the tools that they already have to make that happen. So that's all I want to tell you.
And go ahead, Mike.
So I'll respond to that and kind of frame it in what Jacoby said, is that, the difference between empower and empower is the recognition of where power already exists. So if you already have power, no one can give it to you. They can reveal it, they can support it, they can help you build it. And I think in Baltimore, because I've been involved there a little bit, but peripherally, through the lens of equity, when the report got released that Danielle talked about yesterday, we convened in one of the large foundations, and we said, look, we're going to do this in 13 cities, and Baltimore's doing some extraordinary things that other cities are not. But there's some growth areas too. And so if you look around this room and you look at who's here and who's not here, there's a challenge with who's convening, right? Because there's power in that. So who says what questions get asked and when is a matter of power. And if you're not genuinely framing people's power in a way that they're expressing it themselves, then you have a challenge. And so I think we have some great antecedents, but we have some ways to go there too.
Okay. Question? Okay. Yes.
My name is Karen Liu. I see in the environmental movement, I see a lot of focus being placed more on direct action these days, and I just wonder what role you see this possibly playing, both legal and illegal actions playing in your campaigns. And I'd love to hear from the folks who haven't spoken as much.
Anyone? Anyone want to respond to that?
I don't want to take over, so give somebody else an opportunity. But to answer your question about like the direct action, host farms for 3 years straight, we've had the Mountain Justice student groups come for their spring break and stay in our county because we're kind of at the ground zero of drilling right now in West Virginia. That being said, I know they have a part of their organization called RAMPS, Radical Action for Mountain People Survival. And because what we do is encourage researchers to come, I have to walk a fine line between doing the radical, we're not going to throw ourselves in front of bulldozers and stop them from going up and cutting out a lease road for a shale well. And every year when they come, they ask us, like, do you want us to do a direct action? And these people are really good to me that they know that I don't want that with host farms because I support it, I applaud it, go do it, but because we're trying to work with researchers, and if you're a researcher wanting to, you don't want to contact a group whose website is all over about, protest and things. So the culture of West Virginia is if they were to come and do these kind of direct actions, it wouldn't work because where we are, where the drilling is, there's just that pro-industry mentality that I never thought I'd be called a tree hugger because I'm basically a pretty middle-of-the-road person, and that's the first thing I get labeled when I do anything with this student group, and I'm just doing it strictly educational tours, and therefore they respect that. But they ask, and as I say, it depends on where you are, whether people are going to be fighters and want the attention, or whether they think that it's better to go to a council meeting and just speak up and lay your case out. So it has a place, obviously, but from my perspective in West Virginia, it just doesn't work.
So I have yes, sir. Go ahead.
One could be either heartened or disheartened listening to this discussion. A reference was made earlier, I apologize if it was 6 minutes, having had a mentor. 45 years ago, I had a mentor give me a short piece of advice, and it's got to be since, I'm sure I'd like to pass it on if I may. Never give in to the bastards. And the bastards are all around us, and sometimes it's ourselves. And we struggle, and from the hero 100 years, some odd years ago, there's no progress without struggle. We gotta recommit ourselves when we lose a struggle and fight harder the next time. Never give it ahead.
Yes.
I have one more comment. Can I just direct the gentleman right there second for your voice?
Oh.
Yeah, so I actually had the opportunity to meet someone from Piney Branch Elementary School with the Young Activist Club, and these are elementary schoolers, very smart children, so don't give up on whatever you do and be just powerful. They originally started out with trying to protect polar bears and realized they couldn't do anything about it because it's not really a local issue. It can't really relate to them, so they did styrofoam. And they were able to first go to the Montgomery County Board of Education. I'm sorry to use this word, they were about it because they said, no, we're not going to do that. So they actually went to the city of Tacoma Park. They got them to ban all purchases of styrofoam. They realized that we can't have our taxpayer dollars kill us in the big run. They went to the Montgomery County and they did ban government purchase of styrofoam except the school system. And then they said, well, we couldn't do that because we don't have the money. So they even offered to raise money. And on top of that, they wanted school top gardens, and they said, well, it's against the law in Montgomery County to do that. And the elementary school students said, where is it in the law? And they did not respond. So don't give up, and you can have the youngest of children in the world outsmart the adults.
It's the young people that make the difference in that generation.
So both of y'all made comments, which to me, and I know Dr. Finney has engaged Ms. Honeycutt about the lack of technical support and assistance in communities. And I just want to get you to respond to that and to give more because of your location, close proximity to all those universities that are right down the road. So what's been your experience? Because the reason I'm saying this is the reason we have this event because we need to have more academics who have resources and technical knowledge providing assistance to really address real issues, right? So what's been your experience in that? I mean, it has been positive, negatives, or it's been, talk about more of that technical access that you have or have not had for your two different issues.
Okay, well, for me, I haven't had any access to, the universities. I basically have just been working in my own neighborhood with my neighbors, and unfortunately, I don't have like the manpower or the people that I need to go with me to the universities. We have Howard University, we have American U, we have Georgetown, GW, and UDC, all within the District of Columbia. But until I met with Mr. Ewald earlier this year, he actually put on the panel at American University, which I was not there, but he actually took the testimony from the hearing and shared the testimony, and it generated a lot of interest. I did not know, that could even be done, but Mike was nice enough to take it and share it with AU, so kind of like educating some people about what is going on. Basically, I always seem to feel like I'm in a fight by myself against my council member, and that's not a good way to feel. I pay taxes like everybody else. My family, my community, we've been long-standing members in Brentwood. We have 4 generations that have lived in my house alone. My grandparents have lived there since 1953. They're deceased. My mother, my sisters, and myself, and my niece was born there. My niece is now 22 years old. So we're still fighting, just trying to stay in our neighborhood. But like I said, this place has been in operation since 1980, and what they continuously do is, instead of closing it, they just shift owners. Instead of closing it, they'll sell it, they'll come in, they'll deal with the trash, they'll make the money, and once we keep raising concerns, they'll sell it, and they'll sell it to a new vendor who will still bring in trash. Then they'll make money, then they'll leave, then they'll sell it to somebody else. By the time I had even written the testimony in February of this year, and took the testimony, and the testimony I used was against a company called LLP. That company has sold and gone, and they had changed the name to another company. So what I'm constantly doing is fighting by myself, running behind the companies, trying to get the council member. What you have to also understand is this latest idea was also a part of the swap, because they're trying to bring the soccer stadium to D.C. in Southwest. So they want to swap out part of Buzzard Point land which Buzzard Point, if anybody knows, is just exactly what it says, Buzzard Point. I worked there for Department of Transportation for several years, and it was nothing but some kind of a infected lake or something, and there was just isolated Department of Transportation building in Southwest. I think now they have improved some of it, but they want to, since they no longer can get the Reeves building as part of the deal, now they're trying to figure out every other kind of way that they can swap off different pieces of land in D.C. for their new soccer stadium. But what we're really just telling people is, my neighbors, we are not going anywhere, and I'm being really nice in my language, but we are not leaving. We are staying in our homes, okay? We are really sick and tired of this, and it is environmental racism. I am sorry to even say that, but this is a mixed room, and a lot of you don't look like me, a lot of you do look like me, and there's several generations in here. But what I want to put you on point is when you look around, I have hope. The reason I have hope is, even at 59 years old, I have hope when I see a gentleman like this sitting to the next to me. When I see people who are mobilizing and they're saying, hands up, don't shoot, and they don't look like me. When I see somebody saying, I can't breathe, and I say 11 times, and this mixed people laying down in the sidewalk, America needs to take notice that this systemic racism is not going to continue. Even if you do have a Republican House and a Republican Senate, what do you want to just keep doing? Getting nothing done? I'm trying to make a better world for the generation that's coming behind me. My life is pretty much, I'm on the other side of the mountain. I'm 59. So I'm making it better in my neighborhood for those who come behind me, who are going to live in Brentwood. And if you keep looking around yourself and you look at the diverse population in this room, there's a lot of people concerned about the environment. I'm concerned about styrofoam. I'm concerned about burning trash. I'm concerned about the things that people are putting in the environment and the carcinogenic ions that are released every time they burn trash. My neighbors have asthma. They have cancer. My own mother died of acute myeloid leukemia. We never had cancer in my family. And that's a blood disease. So, seriously, I'm trying to maintain my neighborhood. I'm willing to listen to anybody who has ideas or things that we should do. I have myself, and I have one neighbor on the next block over, and maybe about 2 other people who actually might really care about what's going on. But it's like the gentleman down here said, with the glasses, right here in the black sweater. Most people are just like, hey, I really don't want to be bothered. I just want to live. I want to go to work, come home, sit down, look at my cable television, play my computer. I don't want you telling me anything about the environment. I just want to live here. And then for a lot of the people, some people who come to my neighborhood, they just came into the neighborhood and they just come there to just flip the houses. They just come to improve the houses. A house that was sold across the street from me, the neighbors who were there were elderly. They left. They had to sell the house. They cleaned it up. They refurbished it. They flipped it for $450,000. They're gone. So, I'm sorry. My mother and my uncle worked like dogs to buy our house. Most of you, maybe you come from well-to-do families. I don't know. But the family I come from, when I was a kid, I went to school. I went to elementary school eating mayonnaise sandwiches for my lunch. While kids look at me in elementary school asking me, where is your lunch meat? I didn't have any. I was in Langdon Elementary School with white girls in my classroom on both sides of me. So I'm the beginning of part of the civil rights movement. So when people start talking about, I feel so bad about racism, I lived racism. I was a sales girl at a department store, Learners. When I got my job, I made $2.25 an hour. That was my first job. I could not work at the cash register because I was black. I could be a stock girl, which was to count the inventory and to put the information and the merchandise on the floor for other people to purchase. We could bring it to the register, but we couldn't touch the register. So when you're talking about racism, it's not just the Martin Luther Kings. My mother is as light as most of you in the room. She was. She sat and boycotted Woody's and other places and Garfinkel's where they could not go in the front door. So I've lived it. I'm not asking for anything. I'm asking for what I have given society. 38 years of my life as a working person, not a food stamp recipient, not a welfare recipient, a person who contributed to this economy. And my last job was working at the Pharmaceutical Research Manufacturers of America. Those are the people who make the medicines. They're the lobbyists for Merck, GlaxoSmithKline, every pharmaceutical, every medicine. Any of you are here take any pill. Pharma legislates and mobilizes on the Hill for every single pill that you take. When they found out I had kidney disease, they took my job and put me on the street with no job. So that's your America. And then you wonder, why is ISIS being formed here? Do you really wonder?
Ms. Honeycutt, and if you could speak into the mic so the people in the back can hear you.
Oh, okay. I'm a member of the, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm a member of the technical service group. What we did when we first created the CAG, we created structure. And by that I mean we had elections. We identified a president, a vice president, secretary, treasurer, just like any other organization would do. And we created the Technical Service Committee, which is responsible for taking the raw data that PEPCO gives us and finding people to interpret that data. And in order to do that, we solicited information from the community, anybody that we could. And we ended up getting contacts at American University, George Washington University, the University of the District of Columbia, and other universities, but these three met the challenge. Dr. Jones at the University of the District of Columbia, he and his colleagues first took the data when we got it and deciphered it and gave us their input on it. We took this input that they gave us and collectively came up with constructive questions to challenge PEPCO and this data. Dr. Phoenix contacted us with forensic toxicologist, Dr. Fojie. Fojie. And he looked at the data and gave us information that we needed to ask structured, legitimate questions. American University, everybody know they're working up there on the landfill and they're continuously finding World War II ammunition in people's backyard. So they gave us the history of what they had to go through, their struggle. So we took that information so we wouldn't make the same mistakes. So if you have questions, and we are repeatedly on the internet asking for help, and help comes from places you have no idea. So that's how we have structured the CAG, and moving forward, that's how we are going out soliciting help.
And I'm going to make one comment before I recognize the next person with a question that this issue of technical expertise is a common theme that I think is running through a lot of what people have said. And I've been in the really uncomfortable position of trying to become a technical expert in my role as a member of the community advisory group without necessarily having all of the technical background that would be helpful to do that. I wish I had studied engineering. You know, I wish I was an expert on chemical fate and transport so that I could understand things like where the plumes form and how they move through the layers of clay and shale. And I don't have that technical background. I'm a physician. And we were not trained to address these kinds of issues. So I've had to try to, pull in favors and call people who sometimes now are not returning my emails to ask them to lend a hand to this effort, because no one person could have that background that's needed to really address all of the complex issues about these chemical exposures. And so it's a difficult challenge. There are no resources, and trying to get the responsible parties to pay for us getting the technical expertise that we need is really an uphill battle. So, you know, that's a challenge. It's a challenge that I think we face. The science has not yet caught up with these kinds of issues. The science of being able to look at several chemical exposures and the cumulative effect that those might have on people is just not there. You know, it's a science that's in its infancy, and that's really what we need. We need the ability to be able to take PCBs and PAHs and metals and combine them all into a model that will tell us what the effect might be on people who are living within, you know, 100 feet or 1,000 feet of a plant that might be emitting those into the air or into the water or into the soil. And we simply don't have those tools yet fully developed. So there was a question, yes.
I wanted to offer information. My name is Dion Brown, and I'm a member of the Georgetown Lombardi Cancer Center Environmental Justice Advisory Board. And when you live in Washington, D.C., you never have to fight alone. Our primary service areas include wards 6, 7, and 8 in D.C. because those are the the areas that border the Anacostia River, which is highly contaminated, and the surrounding neighborhoods have extreme health disparities. So the beauty of this organization is that there's reach back to the university, and we have access to professors in the medical school, the law school, and other graduate programs. And we have graduate students who work under the supervision of professors that provide expertise to advocates and community causes. So if I thought Everett Dotson would be here today. He's the staff person who provides the leadership to that, and the faculty advisor is Louise Adams Campbell. So, and she's a PhD epidemiologist working directly for the university. So I highly encourage you to reach out there. And also through another cause I was working with, we had reached back to George Washington University School of Public Health when we were advocating for food equality. And there was a professor there who had grant money already and just didn't have projects, you know, to apply it to. And we brought particular issues to her attention. She gave us access to graduate students and provided oversight to addressing some of the legal and technical issues in that respect too. And you know, this is a large university here. You have them all over the region. So the beauty of being in this immediate area, again, is that you don't have to fight alone. And it's just a very resource-rich area to be in.
Thank you for sharing that. I hope you'll stick around so that folks can make contact with you afterwards. And to be fair, Mr. Dodson has been a resource to the Community Advisory Group, so we do appreciate that. Next question.
Hi, my name is Sharon Hartzell. I'm a graduate student at the University of Maryland in environmental chemistry and toxicology. So one thing that these questions have brought up for me is we are a very resource-rich area here in terms of having access to universities, although it sounds as though there are still challenges in making those connections. I'm interested in how scientists and technical experts can be more accessible, especially to activists and community groups working in areas that maybe don't have universities within driving distance or contact, you know, in such close contact. Can we have some sort of like database of researchers making their expertise and like available and putting themselves out there as resources? That was what I thought of. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on that.
Would anyone on the panel like to respond to that?
In Delaware, we found that most of the support we've gotten was from retirees in the area. In where we live close to Rehoboth Beach, Ocean City, Maryland, you know, it's a lot of big retirement areas. People move there because of the low property taxes and everything. But a lot of the environment or the involvement has been through retirees who are looking to do something with their time if they don't play golf or something like that, and they've been a lot of help to us.
I think some of the biggest help that universities can do in getting in contact with people from different areas is putting it in language that they can understand. People understand jobs when the government, when the governor runs for governor and says jobs, 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 but climate change, environmental science, what is that? You know, we can put it in language that people can understand. It can translate to jobs too.
And can I share a best practice from Place Matters, which, because we have all this tripartite of partners, so we have government, we have, right, but reverse the power equation and go on a listening tour for what they need. Because otherwise CBPR or your agenda as a university or as a researcher is going to drive it. And they know what their pain is.
I think one thing I want to say, the biggest response to when you hear about, it's all about jobs, jobs, jobs. Well, again, as I said, in West Virginia, the local jobs are just the grunt workers or the well pads. The $100,000 jobs are all the people they bring in for the engineering and all on shale gas drilling. But that being said, when they talk about, oh, it's about jobs, 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 because in our case, the oil and gas industry they have so many exemptions from the basic environmental laws on a federal level. And I always just counter back with, if it is all about jobs, if you make them, not that it can be done right, but it can be done better, okay? If you make them do it under certain restrictions, it's going to create more jobs, not less. Do like the shale gas emissions, closed loop systems, different ways that they can monitor it, and that's the whole issue. Don't say it's about jobs because you're taking shortcuts, you're not doing things right, and you're contaminating. Do it right, it's going to create more jobs. So that's what is always a good argument to come back with.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Chauncey Lundy, and I'm with Inspire Green. And I spoke a little to this yesterday when we were talking about diversity in NGOs, but there's a lot of expertise, and I just want to offer a resource. Like you were talking about engineering. I'm an environmental engineer. I took chemical fate and transport and environment. But in DC, there's the National Society of Black Engineers, and a lot of the people I know who are part of that organization, I can facilitate a conversation. They work in industry, but they want to do more community-based work. Like I have friends who have PhDs in chemical engineering who may work in patents, but they want to be able to do more work. So I think it's a matter of knowing what's out there and who's out there. What I figured out in DC is that there's almost like two different worlds. There are people who live in DC and work in the government, and they really don't know anything that's going on in the community. But then there are people who in the community are really active in the community, and they don't know the connections that they have. So I'm willing to facilitate that conversation.
Thank you, Chance. So this lady in the back here. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Chris Keels, and I work for an agency called Port Services and Offender Supervision Agency in Washington. And we have community service workers, so if you're a nonprofit organization in the district and you need someone to come in and help pass out flyers, do office work or whatever, we do provide that. And then secondly, I'm in charge of our agency's faith-based initiative, where I work with communities and help educate communities on various issues, particularly the faith community. So you and I need to talk about strategies, and we need to talk.
6 minutes, okay. Okay. Maria?
I want to just offer a little bit of resources.
Can you stand, please?
Sure. Offer a little bit of resources. A lot of the groups that Jacoby has had here are a lot of resources for a lot of you in the room. For example, SRAP, we have an engineer that is capable of providing free technical assistance to all of our clients, and that has been a godsend. Some of the universities, like Widener Law School, or these will take on things pro bono. So, Environmental Integrity Project, they have people that consult, that can give communities help in the technical things that, as a nonprofit, you will not get charged for that. So this is really important for the communities to know. A lot of the resources that we had here, even like the people from the EPA yesterday, and some of them, make those contacts and make those relationships, because it's important. Even Jacoby, when I met him, conference call.
Yeah, I helped too.
What's that?
I helped
You helped, that's what I was just gonna say. You know, don't be shy. I heard Jacoby immediately, I told Michelle I need him. And I told Jacoby, we had him down in Delaware, and he's trying to hopefully help show me and help me with the health initiative, so that we learn from each other, you know? He becomes a mentor and we pass it along. But the technical, ask the nonprofits, a lot of times they're staffed with someone, and that is huge for the legal and the technical, because that's what's going to bog the community down. You don't have that, you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars for everything.
I have a question about our ability to identify perhaps people whose names we've heard who are attending the conference. Will there be a participant list that we can access?
Yeah, it's a lot of work, but that's something that so we'll have a participant list. And I think part of the idea behind this event is we have, I know everybody's going to use online, but the idea with the first symposium was to create these affinity groups and people that access folks online. So if you had a question, you're going to list them and you use that. We have this space, then you can get your question answered and be able to do follow-up. Those are whole, and so it just hasn't worked well from 2012 then. But we have that space, so this conversation is just one conversation, but the people who have needs, they'll be able to get access to those technical resources through that space. But we're going to create a participant list that'll be available. We're going to try to make sure we add people to the list there and then do a better job of getting that space as usable space so folks can follow up with experts who may have expertise that they can access.
Thanks. And we have about 3 minutes left. Yes.
Hi, I'm Greg. And I was listening to the wonderful panelists, and what was going through my head was that I'm hearing individual or separate symptoms of crisis. And this is, I'm going to make a statement first and then ask a question, and this is subject to comment. So I'm hearing a system in crisis. Incinerator being built less than a mile from schools, entire farms being destroyed, deep historical racism, okay, that's still manifesting itself today. So we're talking about individual symptoms, but underlying that, I want to hear people's thoughts on are the reforms and the individual battles you guys are fighting, while a matter of your survival and our collective survival, are they enough to address the systemic issues that we're facing? And as we're fighting these individual battles, how do we carve out the space to do the longer term thinking that gets us to think of the bigger picture changes that we may need? I'm asserting we need bigger picture changes. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
I would say that the systemic issues ain't not enough to be just masked up by some reform changes. But our relationships, the media, the education, all of that needs to be changed from the root. Because slavery ended, what about 1865 was Emancipation Proclamation. So that was the end of chattel slavery, but we never dealt with the root of the problems. There was some reform changes, but it was still racism, and a lot of racism. We never dealt with, our social relationships. Those kind of things that underlie racism needs to change. I think it's going to be more than reform.
You have to change attitudes, not just laws.
Right.
Right.
I'll give you two responses to what you just said. One is in agreement with what's just been said by my colleague here, and that is that the issue of race has never really truly been addressed here in America. We always have buffering systems, okay? We have systems we put in place. So some of the things that have happened around this country, we don't even hear about it because it goes on national news, or it's not news where we are because we're in we're in the DMV. So a lot of it we don't even get. The second thing is, and it's unfortunate, but I'm going to have to put it in front of your face. I am African American. A lot of the problems I run into is racism within my own race. Okay, and that is going back to the paper bag brown test. Those are generational tests that my uncle, who was darker than some of you in this room, was a student, a top A student at Dunbar High School. But because of the color of his skin, he was not allowed to play on the basketball team, but he could coach the basketball team. Okay? So this is racism that we ourselves, we've never gotten past our own light skin versus dark skin problem. So we can't even deal with the racism that we feel from white America because we can't deal with the racism we have within our own race. That's the other thing. I want to go back to what Sakobi said, and he asked questions about what has been done or what we've done in terms of technical assistance. I'm not a racist, so please don't think that. I have a lot of friends who are white, who are Jewish Americans and everything else, and some of my very best friends don't look like me. In fact, when I need something, I don't go to anybody who looks like me because they're the last one to help me. And it starts with my church, and I'm going to put somebody on blast who's here, because not so many years ago, I volunteered for Court Services and Offender Supervision Agency to work with returning citizens who are ex-offenders, to try to get them educated so that they could pass tests and become returning citizens who were productive. And they could take some of the very menial jobs that are out here, cleaning up trash, helping to do the environment. But there's a systemic operation that in order to keep other people employed, we don't want to employ the returning citizens. Their job is to make sure that returning citizens are never returning citizens. And when I was found to be proactive and really positive in getting my students, I was removed from the education panel. The charge that was against me was that I had been proselytizing. I had been talking about God to my returning citizens. And then I was accused of cursing. I cursed in the classroom in terms of demonstration. I never cursed any of my returning citizens. I don't know if any of you saw the funeral service of the late Marion Barry this weekend. But the funeral services showed you a bunch of returning citizens who got up and who actually talked. And they talked about carrying a makeshift casket down the street. But Marion Barry was the first person who gave returning citizens jobs through Pride. So as long as you are going to continue to put in this systemic operations that hold people back, it's like the people say, until all of us are free, none of us are free. And in terms of what they're doing in the trash, what I'd like to see them do, Sakobi, is just make that personal plant that they have by my house a compost plant. One of my city administrators, David Grosso, he lives in Ward 5. He has compost in his backyard. He has a compost. So instead of switching out trash and bringing us sewer trucks, which is what they were trying to do this week, we could use the land as a compost facility. I have no objection to that. But I do have objection to continuously thinking that you're going to subjugate myself and my residents to racism through trash or force us out of our houses by continuously bringing trash. And my church has a child development center. I want you to tell me how we can develop our African American children to do anything positive when they can't even have clean air to breathe.
So with that, I think I'm going to ask everyone to thank everyone. And I've been told repeatedly that we have to close out and go to lunch. So I think officially we're going to close out. I'm going to